Thank you, everyone. A very good afternoon. I hope you can hear me well. I'm Arusha, and I take care of the people function for the European region at LTI. For those of you who may not know who we are, LTI is an Indian multinational information technology services and consultancy formed in 1997. So this is a very special year for us as we celebrate our Silver Jubilee. When I was talking to Sam about what should we be talking about today, I just reflected on all the conversations I've been having with my counterparts in other IT companies and even companies outside that sphere. And one thing which came up everywhere and one challenge that I still think we are experiencing is about figuring out what do we do with this new ways of working, right? We are talking about hybrid, we are talking about challenges related to that. So that's what we are going to be talking today about. I'll share with you what we have done at LTI in the way we have approached hybrid way of working. We call it the Yin-Yang Model. And we'll also talk about why do we call it the way we call it. While I will share what we have been doing, I think, as Phil said, this is about a conversation, and I would love to hear from all of you what you have been doing and learn from that. Our approach is we are solving for the future, and I think it is important that we reiterate that we haven't solved. It's a journey that we are on. We are trying to improve as we learn what we are doing. Our journey started pre-pandemic, and at that point in time, we were working on something we called future of work. We were trying to address the changing needs of talent, their changing expectations, and the demands. But then COVID hit, and we had to recalibrate everything. We had to revisit the approach we were taking. And when we started those discussions, we realized that we were getting stretched. It was as if one day we were in a situation, the second day we were in another situation, completely different, very contrasting. The need of one individual to the need of other individual was so different that we were just finding it very difficult to find a balance. And that is what led to our conversation around yin-yang. As some of you may know, yin-yang is a concept of dualism. It describes how seemingly opposite or contrary forces may actually be complementary, interconnected, and interdependent in the natural world. Now, we do experience it. I think I experience it almost every day when I'm talking to my teenage daughter. But in the workspace, what we were experiencing was more the pre-pandemic work, where we knew what working in office brings to us. That was very clearly our ability to collaborate naturally with our colleagues, right? Over a cup of coffee or a water tap, mentoring was easy. We were able to ideate, right? It was just a matter of bringing people together in a conference room or a meeting room, speak about it, get it solved. The solutioning was faster. You didn't have to match people's calendar. You could have just walked to them and done it. There was so much that we were able to do. And I think connection, your ability to know people better and not just see them over videos was far, far better. And I think that is what we are achieving today, right? We are all so excited, meeting each other, getting to speak to each other. Then pandemic forced us into literally a lockdown mode. Not that we haven't worked from office, worked from home. We all have, once in a while or maybe each Friday. But being forced to work from home was very, very different. And it brought in its own set of challenges. But at the same time, we also realized that there were benefits from it. People were able to plan their work better. There was no one interrupting them when they were doing something. So there were higher periods of focused attention our team was able to achieve. They were able to save time in commute, and that was being used towards learning, caring, and do something that they really were passionate about. And that's when we realized that just like yin-yang, the future success of our teams and organization lies in balancing it, balancing the two worlds. Now, at the back of all of this, what is important was, as I said, people are at the heart of everything that we do. And it goes back to the philosophy that we have in the organization on a concept based on a South African term called Ubuntu, which means I am because we are. So during that period, I'm sure most of us were constantly in touch with the employees, understanding what was going in their life. We had various different kind of connects. We had leadership connects, we have daily check-ins, there were one-on-ones, and we just asked two simple questions. What was working for them and what was their concern? What was bothering them? And from there we collated what we need to reinforce in the model that we are building and what do we need to cater to ensure that things that they are worried about are addressed. As part of it, we came out through 4 personas. Persona 1 is work office, which is where the individual needs high level of collaboration and it is best done in a work setting. The second persona is client office. It is more for people where they need to be working out of a client location. We are in an information technology company and at times we have to deliver out of our customer locations. The third being home office. This is more when you are trying to concentrate and you can manage your work independently. You don't need to collaborate that much. And fourth being hybrid, which is the flexibility between all these models. So whether you're working from office, home, and sharing time as and when needed. We ran a pilot with one of our business units to see if this model is going to really work for us. And we realized that it really gave our teams greater flexibility. It helped them in learning. It helped them thrive the culture of coaching and mentoring. It led to better collaboration because it was just not one model now. They had teams virtually joining them. They also had teams present with them in the same room. And lastly, it actually led to improved productivity. But as you know, doing things in a small group is always easier than doing it in the organization. When we had to scale this up to everyone, each one in LTI, which is 47,000 of us across the globe, we had to ensure that we are still customizing and meeting the expectation of each one in the organization. And how do you balance that? So we came up with a triangular framework to decide which persona is best for them and which was based on the nature of work that they were engaged in. The client requirements, the complexity of work that they were in, how much collaboration they needed to do what they were doing. The project requirements, is there a specific infrastructure requirement that they need? Were there limitations because of compliances or sensitivity or security reasons? The project life cycle, it all depends whether they were in the initial phase or they were doing integrations. Again, that was one of the key parameters, and business continuity. And the third, which is the most important element, was personal needs. I think each one of us at a very different stage in our life. And as Phil mentioned, we are an inclusive organization. We want to take everyone along with us. It doesn't matter how they feel, look, what they need is what's most important to us. So depending on what their caring needs were, what their personal preferences were, they don't need to have a reason to ask for it. It just could be a personal preference that they had. And bringing these 3 elements, we decided what persona was best. We've kept it very simple. There is a persona app, which I can just choose what persona I want. The intimation goes to my manager and we can have a quick discussion if there's a need for it, otherwise it just gets applied. It's not written on rock, so you can change your personas in a span of 3 to 6 months, or if you're comfortable with whatever way you are doing things, that can be a longer term arrangement with you. So it's a very, very flexible approach that we have set up in the organization. Now, it's very easy to talk about these things, but you have to ensure that the fundamentals and the foundation stones, like technology, is in place to enable this for you. Our team spent over 6 months to just ensure that this framework, this model is going to really work the way we anticipated it to work. And for that, we needed a lot of tech. We are a tech company, and I'm sure a lot of you come from that world. The internal tech is not always the best, right? As we say, technology fails a lot. So this was a big piece for us to ensure that there is connectivity, the systems are working. Now people are getting the same experience, because what we were very conscious of is that someone working in office should not get a better experience than someone working from home. Just because of the work location that they have chosen, the experience cannot get subsidized. So we invested in best of the collaboration tools. We ensured that there's connectivity, whether it was in terms of assets or virtual support. We have set up 24/7 helpline on IT for our global teams across irrespective of the time zone that they are in. Facilities. Now earlier, most of us would have a desk allocated to us in one of our offices. Through Yin-Yang, we have allowed anyone to operate out of any office in LTI when they want to go. That meant the facilities has to ensure that there are only as many people as that office can accommodate in a day. Again, we've kept it simple. It's just an app away. You can select the office, you can select the date, you can select the duration of your stay in that office, so that if people are doing timeshare, they can still use the same desk. And you can ensure that when you're going there, there is a place for you to sit and work. We have kept flexible working hours, and also if there is anything that people want to do in terms of personal support. I think what has benefited is that now anyone can go to any office. It may seem small, and yeah, it's not rocket science, but we were not operating like this earlier, so it did help us. The third thing was productivity. Again, in terms of experience, we had close to 16,000 employees joining in the last 2 years, and we had to ensure that they got the same experience of onboarding, the same experience of realizing what LTI was, the same experience of the culture that we upheld in the organization. And again, we want to carry on with that. While now people can travel easier, better, and I'm so happy that I'm not wearing a mask and talking. Those days hopefully are over. So we again invested a lot in the collaboration tools to be able to put all of that in place. It's a journey. If you ask me, have we solved it? May not be completely, but I think we have come a long way from where we started. The biggest challenge that we had in our mind when we were putting this framework together was engagement. As most of you know that during pandemic, one of the things that got the worst hit was employee engagement, right? Despite of all the effort we were trying to put in as employers, as HR teams, the engagement did get adversely impacted. Now, how do you do that? While we invested heavily in employee well-being, their mental well-being, there were connects at various different levels. There were engagement models put together to take care of their needs. But the important element here was, is the manager equipped to deal with this dynamic workforce that they have? They knew how to deal with people when they were sitting around them. They've had virtual teams working with them. They knew that. But now, they will have half their teams with them in the room, half of them on a call or a video. And how do they manage their expectation? How they ensure that their contributions are well recognized? Just because someone is working from home, they don't get disadvantaged. How do they ensure that the connect that they have with team is equal? No one feels that they're out of sight, out of mind. So that was the biggest puzzle that we had to solve for. And preaching is easy, but practicing is difficult. So we did some bits in that space, and I'm very, very happy to share that with you. And actually, that's also where I would love to learn from each one of you. We created a DIY kind of a manual. We call it Empower, which is manager getting empowered. And it's a simple framework we created. It's called 6-Way, where we had given very practical tips around how do they collaborate with this diverse workforce. And when I say diverse, I'm talking about the diversity in terms of workspace and the place they operate from. How do they effectively communicate? How do they ensure that there is timely recognition of each one's contribution? How do they care for their own teams and ensure that the teams are able to care for for their loved ones? How do they stay connected and ensure that they are thriving in the culture that we have in the organization? It's really a DIY handbook. The feedback we have received so far is just tremendously well received, so we are hoping this will help us strengthen what we are trying to do. The other thing that we did, interestingly, till now, I think we all have been in a setup where the workforce came to the workplace. LTI has taken this phenomenon the other way. We want to bring the workplace to the workforce. So as part of our dipstick surveys, we also checked with our people as to where they wanted to work from. And it had a larger impact for us back in India because a lot of our workforce said that they wanted to work from their hometown. A lot of these are tier 2 cities. Traditionally, you will see IT companies in the larger cities or the cosmopolitans. And we decided, based on the data that we received, that we will choose 3 locations which had maximum concentration, and that's where our people wanted to be. One of our offices, which now we call these offices, we are calling satellite offices. We have already opened one in Coimbatore, and that's the picture of that one. Now, just to give you an understanding of what a satellite office means, it's like Tesco's large to Tesco Express, right? You can just swiftly walk in, pick up your things. It may not have everything, not the big packs, but definitely something that'll keep you going. It's a similar concept that we have. We didn't have this requirement coming for UK, otherwise I could have given you a UK example. The other 2 offices will be launched in this quarter itself. So one thing that we definitely wanted to ensure is that people felt that they are taken care and we go to them rather we asking them to come to us. In addition to everything else which we have done in the engagement, we also felt that we need to have a constant, transparent dialogue because the world is changing, right? We have just come out, let's hope we are, of a pandemic. We are now experiencing a war, right? We don't know what we are getting into. We have established a quarterly connect. We call it a big huddle where all our CXOs come together with everyone in the organization and just have a very open, transparent dialogue. So there are some of these bits that we are trying to do, we have done. I have just shared everything that we have done and not just what we are trying to do. And I would love to hear from each one of you. I'll take a pause now. Happy to answer any question that you may have, or if you can share your own journeys, that would be lovely. Thank you. Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Arusha, for sharing your model. My question is more about your engagement because, that makes sense, the journey that you went on, but for us, it was that culture piece that was so difficult to maintain, and so much so that we had people join and leave within lockdown, which was devastating to us. That was very much the investment piece and collaborating. So how did you really maintain that collaboration with staff and that engagement to keep, them employed in that cycle?
Right. So if I'm getting this right, you're talking about how did you ensure that collaboration was on and as I said, I think engagement has been the most difficult part of this, like you said. We have, okay, you want me to be here? Sorry. Sorry. Right. So I'll share what we have done. Not sure if that's good enough or not, but yeah, so engagement and collaboration was one of the biggest challenge we were facing as well. And we felt that managers were getting really sandwiched, right? Tons of expectation from management, tons of expectation from team members, right? Poor guy or girl, whosoever they are, getting really struggling because they are also individuals, right? They also have their own piece of struggle in this setup. So our model of engagement was focused on managers. We tried our best to enable them in all possible manners. We gave them complete autonomy to do whatever they felt was right for their own teams, take decisions exactly how they felt comfortable with, and stay in touch with them. And we ensured that we were in touch with them. So while HR was, as an HR team, we were connecting with the teams on regularly. We had these check-ins, and I'm sure all of us were doing all of that. But our focal point was our managers, because we were very, very conscious that they should not break in this whole bargain. We did put some checks and balances. So we have a mechanism which this is only post people agree to it, to check for how long they have been on their systems. And anyone who was clocking more hours or longer hours, constantly we actually approached them and said, how can we help? I don't know if that answered your question, but yes.
Hi. So when the pandemic hit, I was working in an organisation where a third of our workforce were neurodiverse, and it made for an interesting set of circumstances because the world literally changed overnight. I just wondered whether you had any challenges like that in terms of setting up support mechanisms and structures, particularly for staff that may have a disability or are neurodiverse and working and suddenly having to work from home. We did the best we could at the time. I'm sure we could have done better. But yeah, I'm just curious to understand whether you had similar challenges and what you did about it.
We don't have that kind of a neurodiverse workforce, as you said, 1/3 of it. While we do have things like employee assistance program, we invested heavily in counseling because we were very conscious that people were, they were experiencing something that they have never experienced. And I think addressing a problem when you acknowledge it is far easier. So what we were conscious of is that half of them may not even know that there is a problem that they need to address. So we ran a lot of seminars. We subscribed to these apps where you can do meditation. We ran actually daily meditation programs just to ensure that if someone was inclined, they were able to do. We formed small groups where people could talk, right? And again, we used the managers, their colleagues, and we said, if you get any sign of concern, please come and tell us. Because our philosophy is, I think it's easy to address problems when you are aware of them. But the problem really happens when you're unaware, right? It goes undetected. That's where it can really get escalated. So that's the approach we took. There were very, very strange circumstances. As I said, we are a project-based organization. We are an IT company, right? There were people traveling on business who got stuck in the hotel for months together because they could not fly back. And they had things happening in their family, right? This was not what they traveled or they planned for. So we had difficult situations, but we just came together and did whatever we could do in that time. Thank you.
Hi, I just wondered what the impact on your attraction strategy was and how you communicated the Yin-Yang model externally to use that as a tool for attracting talent into the organisation, given that there are obvious challenges out there in the marketplace, and trying to attract and retain top talent is something that all organisations are struggling with, or many organisations are struggling with. So I was just curious to understand how you communicated the Yin-Yang model externally to prospective candidates and employees as a tool for attracting them into the organisation.
I think we need to work on that space, definitely. We have been very centered around the employees internally, and that is where we collaborated with and created this model. I think there's scope that we can do while we go external. We do talk about it when we are, when we are exploring talent from external market and we are talking to them. But if I really look at, did we really leverage it as an attraction tool? I don't think so. We did that well in that space. But definitely, now that you're talking about, let me look into that. More work.
I'm interested in almost like the psychology of now we're in this hopefully post-pandemic phase. During the pandemic, I think one of the few silver linings was that perhaps things were able to change a lot more than we perhaps thought possible. Things that had been in the too difficult pile, were able to change. Now we're in this current phase. I mean, has it been possible to sort of maintain that momentum for ambitious projects when actually some people may be thinking, well, I've had a lot of change, I'm ready for a bit of a rest now. Do you see what I mean? Because there's sometimes, even under duress, things had to change in the pandemic. Have you now become more ambitious in the scope and scale of what you're trying to do in HR?
Actually, we feel it's more relevant now because during pandemic, it was definitely very, very uncertain. So I'll tell you the journey we went on 2020 when pandemic hit. December, we were ready with the model. We thought we'll roll it out in Jan. Came Jan, second wave, nothing happened. We thought, okay, fine, we'll just roll it out in September. Wave 3 again. So it was very, very difficult to just plan and act in the manner that you wanted it to be. But now that people are coming back to work, I think we are more closer to reality. Now we understand the requirements better than we did at that time, because those were temporary requirements in my mind. What we were dealing with was very defined and very limited. But today, now that we are able to come back, people know what their needs are, and it's an evolution, to be honest, and that is how we have taken it. And that is what I think is good, because as an approach, we are very clear that we haven't solved, we are solving, and this will constantly change. So, yes.
Hello, my name is Juliana. We've talked before.
Yes, Juliana.
I am from Upstock, the software as a service company, and I was willing to ask about how could service companies assist huge companies like your company, like Puma, I don't know. We provide this thing, a little bit of how to manage expectations of a remote worker. I think it was something important, just when they're far away, not in the office, we're providing this function. So my question is, how likely it is for those companies, as well as my company, is to get into work with companies like yours and actually help with this thing, with engagement, with happiness management, everything. So the question is this.
I'm sorry, so is the question how LTI...
The question is how likely it is so the companies would look for the other service companies who are actually willing to do this part of work, this part of integration into the project, into the workers' well-being, mental security, something like this, because we're providing this as a company, and my question is how likely it is so the companies like mine will get this part of work in the market.
Right. So Juliana, definitely this is partnership that we have with various other organizations who support and bring their expertise. So we were talking about employee well-being. Now we are not experts in that area. We have partnered with other organizations who provide that support to us. I was talking about how we have strengthened the technology, right? So we have now ensured that there are multiple collaboration tools available to our workforce. So all of that is done in partnership with other technology companies or the companies that have expertise. So yes, we do partner with other organizations to ensure that we bring the best for our people. I'll ensure that I speak with all of you. Maybe at 3. Yes.
Hi, my name is Parthajit. Thank you for the insights. I just had one question. While the world went through different waves of pandemic, and we had different experiences that we went through of wellness, DEI, etc., there was also a wave of great resignation, right? And the world is still reeling under that pressure. So what are some of the measures which you took in your organization for that? I'm sure none of the organizations would have cracked the puzzle of the cookie cutter approach of retaining an employee, but I'm sure things would have, would need to be customized from an employee perspective. So what are some of the measures which you took which have worked well for you?
The great resignation, I think, I would first want to call it a great reshuffle in my mind, because people were not resigning from what they were doing. They were exploring what they wanted to do, and maybe that was the time of inflection, right? The 2 years, we all got the question hovering in our mind as to, is this worth it? Do I want to do it for the rest of my life? And I'll give you my personal example. I think I've never felt so mortal in my life. Now, every decision I take, I tell my family and my daughter, as I said, teenage, right? She questions everything that I do. And I tell her that, yeah, I think whatever life I have left, I want to do it, right? Now, it may seem gross, it may seem spooky, it may seem weird way of looking at it, but these are reality of life. We were born to die. Again, I don't want to make it sound that bad, but when you face the reality, you then realize that, okay, this is it. I don't know how long I have and I need to do what I love doing, or I want to do what I dreamt of doing. So what we are experiencing today is a great reshuffle. People are not just leaving one organization to join another organization. There's a lot of change in career that people are experiencing. And if you remember, we spoke about the workplace going to the workforce, right? Which was one of the interventions that we created, because when people, like our own workforce, our own employees started living with their parents in their hometowns, they realized that that's a perfect world, right? They're able to work, they're able to spend time with the people that matters the most in their lives. And that is the dimension we took, and we said, yeah, we need to provide for that. If we can make it work, it will work for them. Have we experienced greater resignation? The answer is yes. People have left, we have had attrition, but have we done what we could in our capacity to take care of them? The answer is big yes as well. So that's it. Thank you, Phil.